The Concord summit chamber gleamed with impossible geometry. Spires of crystalline alloy stretched upward, catching the light of 3 artificial suns suspended in the vaulted ceiling. Beneath them, tiered rows curved around the vast central dais, each row assigned by status. The front rows were crowded with the proud and powerful, the Diarachthar Dominion, the Seraphim clans, the Ordax hegemony. The farther back the seating went, the more obscure or fragile the delegations became. And, as always, humanity sat at the very rear. Captain Elias Kane rested his hands on the polished table in front of him, eyes half-lidded. The arrangement didn't bother him. He had studied enough predators on Earth to recognize the advantage of distance. From the back, he saw everyone. From the back, nothing blocked his line of sight. Around him, his fellow human delegates fidgeted. Ambassador Rin tried to look unconcerned, though his fingers drummed nervously. Lieutenant Arya Vega, standing guard at the entrance, scanned the alien envoys with disciplined stillness. The chatter of 100 species filled the chamber, translated into a dozen languages by the humming chorus of embedded translators. The thunderous arrival of the Diarachthar delegation silenced the chamber. They entered like conquering gods, towering, scaled forms clad in armor that shimmered like molten obsidian. Their warlord Xrath strode at the front. Twice the height of a man, his taloned hands curled as if eager for blood. His people's history was carved into their gait, undefeated warriors, predators who had crushed entire civilizations before the Concord forced them into uneasy diplomacy. Xrath reached the dais and stopped. His reptilian eyes scanned the chamber, lingering only a heartbeat on each delegation. When his gaze settled on the humans, a cruel grin spread across his jagged maw. Still hiding in the shadows, he boomed, his voice rattling the crystalline walls. Still at the back, where prey belongs. Uneasy laughter rippled through the chamber. Some delegations shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to anger the Dominion. Others smirked, relieved not to be the target. The Seraphim clans clicked their mandibles in amusement. Ambassador Rin stiffened, his cheeks flushed. He opened his mouth, but Kane's hand touched his arm lightly, silencing him. Kane leaned back in his chair, eyes calm. "Good evening to you too, Warlord." His voice carried just enough weight to be heard, though it was quiet compared to Xratha's bellow. The Warlord tilted his head, mock curiosity glinting in his eyes. "Tell us, little mammal, why do you always sit at the back? Do you fear the sight of true strength?" Kane folded his hands unhurried. "We sit where we see best. Perspective, after all, matters more than proximity." A hiss of amusement rolled through the Diarachthar delegation. Xrath slammed his clawed fist against the table, sending cracks spidering across the black alloy. "Perspective is the word of cowards. Warriors sit at the front. Hunters take what is theirs. You," he pointed, talon gleaming, "cower like scavengers waiting for scraps." Kane's lips curved into the faintest smile. "On my world, scavengers often live longer than lions." The chamber grew still. It wasn't defiance shouted in arrogance. It was the unnerving calm of a man who didn't need to raise his voice. Xratha's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward, jaws parting in a snarl. "Do not compare yourself to hunters. Your species entered this concord by mercy. We allowed your kind to exist in our shadow. Speak carefully, or I will remind you what happens when prey forgets its place." Lieutenant Vegas shifted by the entrance, her hand brushing the hilt of her sidearm. Kane caught the movement from the corner of his eye and gave the barest shake of his head. She froze, jaw tight. Kane rose slowly, smoothing his uniform jacket. He wasn't tall compared to most aliens here, yet when he stood, silence followed. His voice remained steady, unhurried. "You look at us and see weakness because we do not roar," he said. "But roar long enough and you forget the silence that comes before the strike." Xratha's laugh boomed, sharp as breaking stone. "Empty words. If you were hunters, you'd prove it here, in front of all." The Concord's presiding arbiter, a being of shifting crystalline facets, interjected in a voice like chimes. "The Dominion will not bring violence into these chambers." But Xrath overrode them, his claws scraping deep grooves into the table. Then let it be settled tomorrow. Trial by combat. Dr. against human. Let us show the galaxy where true strength lies. A murmur swept through the delegations. Some leaned forward eagerly, hungry for spectacle. Others frowned, wary of what such a trial might unleash. Ambassador Rin turned sharply to Kane. Captain, this is madness. We can't. We can, Kane said softly, without looking at him. His gaze remained fixed on Xroth. If that's what the Dominion wants, humanity will answer. The warlord's grin widened. At last you show spirit. Tomorrow, then. In the arena. And when your champion lies broken, the galaxy will remember who rules from the front. The Dr. delegation stormed out, their laughter echoing against the crystalline walls. Silence lingered in their wake. Slowly, conversations resumed, hushed and uneasy. Ambassador Rin leaned toward Kane, voice low and tense. You've doomed us. We can't match them in raw strength. One mistake in that arena and humanity loses everything. Kane sat again, folding his hands as if the matter were no more than routine. His eyes scanned the chamber, noting how the other species avoided meeting his gaze. Pity, amusement, relief, it was all there. None of them believed the humans would last a minute against Dr. Steel. He let the silence stretch before answering. The warlord doesn't understand. Strength isn't only measured in muscle. Tomorrow he'll learn why we sit in the back. Ambassador Ren's voice rose, strained. And what happens when your cryptic philosophy fails? Kane finally turned to him, eyes cold and steady. Then humanity dies as it always lived, facing predators, and finding a way to outlast them. Ren swallowed hard, the weight of the words silencing him. Across the chamber, other delegations whispered among themselves. Some laughed quietly, others speculated on the coming spectacle. The humans, once again, were the entertainment at best and the sacrificial example at worst. Kane ignored them. He had studied predators all his life. The lion's roar was impressive, but it was the quiet leopard in the shadows that killed without warning. And tomorrow, the galaxy would learn which kind of predator humanity had always been. The docking bay of the UNS Resolute hummed with restrained energy. Engineers checked seals, medics organized supplies, and Marines ran silent drills in the shadows. Every movement carried a single unspoken truth. Tomorrow's fight would decide humanity's fate in the Concord. Captain Elias Kane walked the length of the bay, his boots echoing against the steel. He carried no weapon, no armor, just the authority of command and the calm that steadied the crew around him. They stopped what they were doing when he passed, not to salute, but because they needed to see if his face betrayed the fear they all carried. It never did. In the briefing room, Ambassador Rin paced like a caged animal. "This is insanity," he muttered. "We're sending one of our own to die in front of the galaxy. Do you understand what kind of humiliation that will bring?" Kane took his seat at the head of the table. Around him sat his senior officers, Lieutenant Arya Vega, her jaw set like carved stone, Chief Engineer Malik, broad-shouldered and silent, and Dr. Hannah Imai, the ship's medical officer, eyes shadowed with worry. "Not humiliation," Kane said, voice low but certain. "Demonstration." Ren wheeled on him. "A demonstration of weakness, perhaps. The Dr. will put forward a beast twice our size. We have no chance." Lieutenant Vega spoke for the first time, her voice even. "That's why you're wrong. They'll bring brute force. That's predictable. Predictable is beatable." Ren laughed bitterly. "You think you can outmuscle a Dr.? "No," Vega said, her gaze steady. "But I don't need to." Kane's lips curved slightly. "Exactly." He turned to her. "You're volunteering." "I've been ready since he pointed his claw at us," she replied without hesitation. Dr. Imai shook her head. "Arya, their physiology is designed for war. They can tear through titanium plating with those claws. One mistake and—" "One mistake," Vega cut in. "And I'm dead." "I know. But we've always lived with that kind of math, haven't we? One mistake crossing the savannah, one mistake in the trenches, one mistake in orbit." Humans survive because we learn not to make the same mistake twice. Her words settled over the table like stone. Ren stopped pacing, caught by the conviction in her tone. Kane nodded once. Then it's decided. The arena was a cathedral of violence. Carved into the Concorde's central station, it had once been used for ceremonial displays of strength, but had long since fallen out of favor. Today it brimmed with delegates, their voices 1,000 textures of curiosity and hunger. In the stands, the Diarachthar howled, their guttural chants shaking the structure. The other delegations whispered, some pitying, others expectant. Humans, they thought, would bleed quickly. At the center of the arena, the floor gleamed with shifting panels of metallic sand, designed to test combatants with unstable footing. Above, a shield dome shimmered, ensuring no stray strike endangered the audience. Kane stood at the edge of the human delegation's platform, arms folded. He watched as the Diarachthar champion entered, a mountain of scaled muscle encased in living carapace. His arms were thicker than a man's torso, his teeth rows of serrated daggers. He slammed his chest with a roar that sent shockwaves through the air. The crowd answered with thunder. Opposite him, Lieutenant Vega stepped into the light. She wore a simple armored exosuit, light enough for speed, reinforced only at vital points. No oversized weapons, no theatrics. She drew a combat knife from her belt and twirled it once before holding it low and loose. Laughter erupted from the Diarachthar seats. Their warlord Xrath leaned forward, teeth bared in anticipation. The arbiter's crystalline form shimmered at the dais. By the laws of the Concorde, this trial is sanctioned. Fight until incapacity or death. Begin. The Diarachthar champion lunged with terrifying speed for his size, claws carving arcs of light through the air. Vega slipped aside, barely brushing the metallic sand. The ground trembled where he struck, sending shards flying. She didn't answer with an attack. Not yet. She circled, eyes locked, reading him. The champion roared and charged again. This time she dropped low, sliding under his swing, her blade flashing once against the joint of his armor. A shallow cut. Enough to sting, not to end. The Diarachthar laughed, a guttural, cruel sound. You dance, little prey. Dance until your legs break. Vega didn't reply. She kept moving, conserving energy, each dodge precise, each feint calculated. Sweat already gleamed on her brow under the suit's collar. She breathed steady-paced. Minutes stretched. The Diarachthar grew angrier, his swings wider, heavier. Every miss chipped the arena floor, his claws sparking against metal. His chest heaved now, though he still grinned with predatory certainty. Kane's eyes never left him. He counted breaths, noted rhythm. The longer the fight dragged, the more the advantage shifted. Humans had built entire species strategies around endurance. On Earth, lions sprinted and failed. Wolves pursued until their prey collapsed. And humanity had been both wolf and spear carrier. At last, the Diarachthar overcommit. His claws slammed deep into the ground, stuck for a heartbeat. Vega moved. One cut, surgical, precise, slashed across the exposed tendon of his leg. He roared, staggering. She didn't celebrate. She pressed. Knife flicked again, this time at his underarm where the carapace thinned for movement. Another wound. Blood, dark and steaming, hit the floor. The crowd gasped. The champion bellowed and swung wildly, desperation burning in his eyes. Vega ducked, rolled, and drove her blade into the seam of his chest plate. With a twist, she severed muscle. The giant collapsed to one knee, roaring in rage and pain. Vega stepped back, breathing hard but steady. She pointed her knife at his throat, not touching, but clear. Silence fell. The Diarachthar champion, gasping, slumped forward and dropped his claws to the sand. Submission. The arbiter's voice rang like crystal bells. Victory, human! For a moment, the chamber held its breath. Then uproar. Some delegations erupted in disbelief, others in admiration. The Diarachthar howled in fury. At their dais, Xratha's eyes burned like twin suns. He rose, claws flexing. This is not over, he thundered. A trick, nothing more. You think one fight proves your worth? I will see your entire species broken. Not in an arena, on the battlefield. Kane stood, his calm unshaken. Then you'll find, warlord, that humanity fights better when the stakes are survival. Xra snarled, his voice shaking the walls. War, then. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Concord chamber pulsed with disorder. Delegates shouted across languages, their translators straining to keep pace. The Dr. delegation howled in fury, their warlord Xroth looming like a storm at the dais. His champions still bled on the arena floor, beaten not by force but by endurance and precision. The insult burned in every scaled chest. Ambassador Rin gripped the edge of the human table, his knuckles white. We have to withdraw, he hissed to Kane. If Xroth declares war here, the Dominion will crush us before we leave orbit. Captain Elias Kane didn't answer immediately. He scanned the chamber the way a hunter might study a herd. Fear, anger, disbelief, all emotions hung in the air. Every delegation watched humanity now. The quiet species in the back row had stepped into the light, and the galaxy demanded an explanation. Xrotha's voice thundered above the chaos. This proves nothing. One fragile mammal does not speak for a species. If humans believe themselves warriors, let them face the Dominion in open war. Let their worlds burn. Let their fleets scatter. The Dr. roared agreement, their fists pounding the obsidian table in a rhythm of promised slaughter. Kane rose. He didn't shout. His words carried because silence fell when he spoke. You misunderstand, he said evenly. We did not win today to prove strength. We won because you forced us to act before we wished to. The chamber quieted further. The Arbiter's crystalline form tilted, refracting light in curious patterns. Explain, Captain Kane. Kane stepped forward, his voice steady, unhurried. Humanity has survived predators for all of our history. Not by being the loudest, not by standing in the front, but by knowing when to wait. We sit in the back because hunters don't need to be seen until the moment matters. Xroth snarled. Words. Always words. Where is your proof? Kane turned his wrist. A signal pulsed from the comm embedded in his sleeve. The walls behind the Arbiter lit with holoscreens, one after another, filling the chamber with starfields and tactical overlays. Gasps rippled through the delegations. On the screens, Dr. outposts flickered into view, each one surrounded by human ships, silent and patient, their weapons locked but unfired. Supply convoys hung motionless in space, caught in the webs of interdiction fields. Even Dominion patrol fleets floated, boxed in by smaller, faster human strike groups. Ambassador Rin gaped, whispering, When, how did we? Kane's voice cut through the stunned silence. While you mocked us for sitting in the shadows, we moved. While you roared at the front, we circled from the back. Every outpost that feeds your war machine is under our watch. Every route you depend on is already closed. The chamber trembled with shocked voices. Some delegates leaned forward in awe, others in dread. The mighty Dr., who had never known defeat, now saw their power mapped and cornered like prey. Xroth slammed his claws against the dais, his bellow echoing like thunder. Deception! Trickery! You dare threaten us with cowards' tactics? Kane met his glare without flinching. Not trickery. Preparation. The difference between hunters and prey is patience. Prey runs at the first sound. Hunters wait until the prey forgets it is being watched. Lieutenant Vega, standing by the entrance, spoke for the first time since the arena. Her voice was sharp as drawn steel. You've spent centuries at the front, warlord. Always charging, always roaring. You never once thought to look over your shoulder. The Arbiter's crystalline form shifted, projecting a cascade of light across the chamber. The evidence is clear. Humanity has demonstrated restraint and capability. Dr. Dominion, you have been checked. But Kane raised a hand. No. His eyes never left Xroth. This isn't conquest. We're not here to rule you. We're here to remind you, and everyone, that arrogance blinds. We sit in the back not because we fear you, but because we choose to see what you do not. The words landed heavier than any blade. Delegates from the Seraphim clans whispered nervously. The Ordak's hegemony shifted uneasily, realizing their long-time assumptions about humans had been wrong. Xrotha's chest heaved. His claws trembled on the table, caught between rage and recognition. For the first time, the warlord looked less like a predator and more like prey staring at something it didn't understand. "You cannot intimidate the Dominion forever," he rasped. Kane's reply was calm, final. "We don't need forever. We only need to remind you once." The silence that followed was absolute. No laughter, no mockery, no pity. Only the weight of realization settling on every delegation. The Arbiter's charm-like voice broke it. "This trial is concluded. The humans remain in the Concord, respected, not dismissed. Let all present remember what was shown today." Delegates filed out, murmuring. Some cast wary glances at the human delegation. Others nodded in newfound respect. None dared laugh. Ambassador Rin sagged into his chair, disbelief written across his face. "You planned this from the start," he said hoarsely. "The fleets, the encirclements, you moved before Xroth ever challenged us." Kane finally allowed himself a faint smile. "A good hunter never waits to sharpen the spear until the lion is charging." Ren shook his head, torn between relief and unease. "You frighten me, Captain." "You should," Kane said softly. "That's why it worked." Later, as the chamber emptied, Lieutenant Vega joined Kane at the rear exit. The echoes of alien voices still hung in the air, but the storm had passed. She glanced at him. "Do you think they understand now?" Kane's eyes swept the vast amphitheater, the seats still glowing with residual light. "Not yet," he said. "But they'll remember. And the next time someone asks why humans sit in the back." He paused, his expression unreadable. "They'll know to be afraid of the answer." Together they walked into the quiet, leaving the front rows empty behind them.